Good morning, Sister Mary Jo Sieg.
Good morning, Jody.
I should say Sister Rose Bernard.
Well, a long time since I've used that name.
but beautiful name.
Thank you.
From a relative or
From my
family?
sister and my father, my birth father.
And you have a sister who's a Dominican also.
Yes, I do. Rita Rose. we call
Rita
her.
Rose.
Most of the time she goes by Rita, but her name was Rose Marina when she had a religious name. So.
Were you ever mission together?
No, but once I was in Flossmoor and she was in Harvey, which wasn't too far away from each other.
I do remember hearing that Mother Gerald or Sister Bertha, I don't know who was responsible, would see that the sisters were a mission near one another.
Don't remember that happening.
But you weren't near your family because you're from the east side of Detroit?
No, we're
or
from Wyandotte,
Wyandotte.
Michigan.
And how did you come to know the Adrian Dominican Sisters, Mary Jo?
My grammar school years, I was in St. Joseph's Parish in Wyandotte, Michigan, and the Adrians taught in that school. And Sister Pauline Mary Lavoie was, I think, principal my first 4 years in school, and Sister Agatha the next 4 that I was there. And I just always loved the nuns. You know, you go on the playground with them and walk up and down so that while they were trying to make sure everything was okay on the playgrounds. And I'd carry their books home sometimes over to the convent. And
Did they let you inside the convent?
yeah, I was inside the convent more when I was in 4th grade than any other time. I didn't know my multiplication tables. And they would bring us over from the school to the convent because they had things to do, and we would sit on the trunks in the basement and write our times tables out until we learned them. And I remember them singing and laughing and getting ready to go to prayer and having dinner and cooking, and you just heard them throughout the house. And it was just always such a joyful atmosphere that I thought, I'm going to be a nun someday. But that was when I was in 2nd grade I said that.
2nd grade?
Yeah, I said that in 2nd grade.
Did your parents believe you?
Oh, I don't know. My mother didn't say anything about it until years later, and she said, on your first Holy Communion Day, you told me that you knew what you were going to be when you grew up. And I said, what, Mom? And she says, you said you're going to be a nun. I says, yeah, I am.
Oh.
So that was always in the back of my head, I guess.
So you finished college and then you entered?
No. No, I heard about the prep school from Sister Pauline Mary.
The prep.
The prep school.
Preparation for life, right.
And you entered out of 8th grade. So I think I graduated from 8th grade on June 13th, and June 27th I was here in Adrian with my trunk, and my parents brought me.
13 years old.
Not quite. And we went to Innisfail, spend the summers there. And so that was kind of like your 4 years of high school were completed like about 2 years. You went to Innisfail in the summer for freshman year and sophomore year. And no, junior year. And sophomore year and senior year you were at the academy with the academy girls, but you couldn't talk to them. You weren't allowed to talk to them.
Oh, I know. Those were the
hard.
rules.
Right, those were the rules.
Were there many in your prep class?
I think there must have been about 20 of us when we came in. Maybe a little more. I think right now when I recall, I think there are just 2 of us left in my crowd that were in that prep school class.
Who would be the other?
Sister Ann Monahan.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think she was a prep with us.
Who's here in Maria?
No,
No?
she's still in Florida.
Oh, in Florida.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's one that didn't come in yet. Yeah.
So then postulancy and then novitiate and profession.
Yes. My prep school days were not very good. So I consider that my novitiate.
You had 2 novitiates.
My novitiate was like nothing. It was like easy compared to my prep school days.
Well, I would
remember Rose
imagine.
Celeste talking about they went up on the 4th floor and did this and that. We never did that kind of thing. You know, I was always being sent home
by
Sister Corrine, who was our prep mistress.
But I bet you weren't the only one. That was a common thread, I think.
Oh, it probably was a common thread. But, you know, she'd tell me to call my mother and have her come and get me, and I wouldn't do it, and then she'd get upset with me. And
well, what did your parents...
She really got really angry, and she said, why didn't you call them? And I said, because I don't want to go home. I want to be a nun. So
Well, what happened on visiting days then?
On visiting days, Sister Corrine would tell her all about us, and most of the time my mother went home crying because I was supposedly this awful person. But anyway, it was all part of the program, I guess, to humble us.
Getting
and
you in
getting
shape.
us in shape, right. But it was hard.
The years that you spent teaching were quite a few in Chicago, correct?
I was in Chicago from 51 till 74, about 23 years, yeah.
And did you have a favorite place there?
Oh, my goodness. I liked them all. Star of the Sea was neat. There were 8 of us when we first moved there, and I think by the time I left there, we were in the 30s. The school had been renovated. I've changed, I've rebuilt the school 3 different times that I was there. And after that, I went to Flossmoor, which was quite a difference, and spent 6 years there. And from Flossmoor, I went to Bishop Quarter Military Academy, which we owned.
What was that like, Mary Jo?
It was really unique.
Well, you had training from Sister Corinne,
Yes.
Corinne for that, right?
So we had all the boys. I had 7th grade homeroom. Sister Louis Ann, who was in my crowd, went out there at that time. She left after a while, but she was the 8th grade teacher. And she hated math, and I didn't much care for English, so we exchanged those 2 classes each day. But we were in dormitories, a big room with 24 beds in it, bunks, I should say, beds, cots. And you had a little alcove, which if the boys wanted to, they could look over the top of it because it was about 6 inches, about 3 feet probably from the ceiling. And you read to them every night to help put them to sleep. Otherwise, you would probably fall asleep before they did, and there could be havoc.
Well, what were the ages of the young boys?
They were in 7th grade, so probably 11, 12 years old. Yeah.
So it was Bishop Quarter was a grade school.
Well, they had babies too. They had kindergarten through 8th grade.
Wasn't it a boarding school?
At one time, it was a boarding school. Father Gordon, Sister Margaret Ellen's brother, who was made pastor at Loves Park, St. Bridget's, was a student there in his days. So it was like a boarding school for the boys. They went home when we were there. They would leave after school on Friday and come back Sunday evening, except that terrible, terrible winter time that we had when we had like 6 feet of snow and they couldn't get out. So we had them the whole time. The nuns
a nice vacation.
The nuns from St. Ed's came over to help us out to keep them occupied for 3 days. That was interesting.
Do you know the reason that Bishop Quarter closed?
I don't know, other than I know it was sold,
Mm-hmm.
Now, what came to that conclusion with the congregation, I don't know.
It was never considered like a military school, was it?
Yeah, we had military.
Really?
There we had a major and taught them military things. They put on demonstration twice a year of what they knew, sabers and all.
Oh.
It was very different. It was interesting.
So our nuns that were on staff there, they slept in dormitories with these young boys, even like in an alcove or something like that. Well, that was a huge experience.
It was. And then, of course, you had to make sure they turned their beds down in the morning when the bugle blew to wake them up. And if they didn't do it right, then you'd come up from breakfast and you'd dump their bed on the floor, so they had to start over from scratch.
Oh, my. The parents were probably very grateful that they were in your hands and not theirs.
Probably. Yes.
Where did your love of math develop? Because I've heard you were a wonderful math teacher.
My love of math probably developed when I was in 8th grade. Up until then, I hated it. Sister Agatha was principal and 8th grade teacher, but she was not able to be in the room all the time with us, so she got us these Warp's review books for math, different subjects. And we kind of like taught ourselves. You just kept going through the book until you got the problem right, and then you went back and looked at the answer, and if it was right, then you thought, okay, I know how to do this, and you just progressed through that book. And then after that, I just,
You really liked math.
Yes. And I ended up teaching math most of the time, My first 2 years out were teaching 2nd grade, then I think I had 3rd grade for 2 years, 1st grade for 1 year, and then it was 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math after that.
Where were you when you were offered a grant in math?
I was in Loves Park at St. Bridget's, and someone from the bursar's office, I mean, whatever you call the office in the college that they took care of, like Bertha's stuff.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They came to visit different places, and I was to go to Rockford to Bishop Muldoon, and for this talk, this interview, and I was handed a book on math and science grants and told to look through that. Well, first of all, she said, "Why haven't you gone to school for 10 years?" I said, "Because I wasn't sent." I said, "I spend summers whatever my appointment said. It was census or CYO or driver or whatever else, cook." And I said, that's why, I said, I just knew that if the congregation wanted me to go on, they would let me know. So anyhow, I was to look through this book and find out all the ones that had the code 0 or 1 and apply for those grants. I applied for 12. Well, Sister Rita Marie, who was my provincial at that time, was a little upset with me because I didn't apply for like 50 or 100, and I didn't know that. And I said, well, I only applied for 12 because they're the only ones that sounded like I might be interested in them. So my thing was from Sister Rita Marie, you're not going to get anything. Well, all 12 came back, 2 were optional, and 10 were affirmative. And so I had to decide then which one to go to. And I chose the one in Redlands, California, Redlands University.
Is that Northern California?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a beautiful building. The buildings all around were lovely. And we were in a new dormitory section, so we all had our own room, which were made for 2 students. And we each had our own.
Were there any other Adrian Dominicans with you?
No, there was a BVM, a Mercy Nun, an IHM, and 2 religious men. I think one was a Maronist, and I'm not sure if the other one was a Zavarian or not. But there were just about 5 of us, 6 of us, out of a group of 40. And of course, the people that were from that area would make sure that we went different places to see California on the weekends. But other than that, our classes were 8 o'clock in the morning until break at lunch, and then till 6 o'clock in the evening. And after that, it was study time, so you're prepared for your next day's classes. It was hard, but we all enjoyed our time together there, and we helped each other out if we got stuck on something, and then we had our big test, and that test was passed. So
You whizzed right through that with A's, right?
And then when Adrian contacted me again, I was to attend DeKalb University, Northern Illinois University in DeKalb for my master's, to work on that. And when I saw the person who was in charge of all this, he said, well, since these math grades are good and we accept them, he said, well, why don't we strive for a Master's of Education with a math emphasis? So that's what I did. In the next 3 years, between teaching during the year and going to classes at night and in the summertime, I finished that, I think, in about 3 years. So, got that.
I would imagine you had a thesis or a project that you had to do.
Yeah, we had it was like a project. We, one of our professors, and the project I chose was, of course, math, and an individualized math program for students in 7th and 8th grade. And then you had to turn that in, and you didn't know what grade you got on it before you left there for the summer. But I got a letter, I received a letter saying that my project was excellent and that they were going to print my project to use for their schools in individualized math for 7th and 8th graders. And was that okay with me? And I said, wrote back and said, it's more than okay, so fine.
So you were an innovator.
I guess so.
Individualizing math
yes.
Instructions.
But you know, you just can't teach children if they can't learn at the same pace that you're trying to do. You can't even hit the middle of the road because some are not there and some are above it and some are way below it. And if you individualize it, then they can progress at their own speed, their own level. And
where was it that you had a chance to put that into action?
I started a little bit at Loves Park, but mostly I did it at St. Celestine's in Elmwood Park. And I did that the 4 years that I was there, because after St. Celestine's in '74 I came to Michigan. And I used it at St. Suzanne's, and I used it at Wyandotte Catholic Consolidated School, which was St. Joseph's once upon a time, and taught there until I got called into the finance office when I was looking for a job.
Oh my.
And who called you? Was it
Sister Ann Guinan?
Ann Guinan,
yes.
Of course, she was.
Of course, my phone call with her was, Mary Jo, I hear you're looking for a job. And I said, yes. And she said, well, would you think of coming to Adrian to the finance office? And I start laughing, and I said, why would I?
And she knows so much.
She was
about
laughing
math.
at the other end, I think. So I was invited to come in for like an interview, and got the job. Was asked to commit for 3 years, but I stayed for 5 years.
Right.
And during that time, I kind of took over what Ann and Mary Ann Breitnich had started, looking into the centralized checking system. So I ended up working on the handbook that got delivered and went with Ann for the first group of people, of nuns that we asked to join it. And from that point on, that was one of my main jobs in the finance office.
So you were the queen of centralized checking.
Well, I guess you could call it that.
You instructed us all.
Right.
Was there reticence about from the sisters? Were they
think, anything
slow
new,
in picking this
I
up?
think anything new, they were slow in picking up.
Mm-hmm.
When you went to talk to them and explain it and tell them if they could get a convenient account and all this and that to help them out. Because if the bank was here in Adrian, the main bank, then they had to have some other bank that they knew would accept their checking.
checks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting, because then I got sent to different places like California and Florida, and I think it was Albuquerque. I'm not sure. It was out west someplace.
I hope you got to Las Vegas.
Oh, I did get to Las Vegas. Yes, she took me to Las Vegas to play the slots with a roll of nickels. I didn't win anything, but it was fun, and then we had dinner there. But it was the stops at the different places to talk about centralized checking was just like a one-day thing, or an overnight to the next place, and you didn't get to see a lot of the territory, but.
Were they like with mission councils or mission groups? Or?
They were mission groups mostly, people that had gathered. And some places there were 2 mission groups together, and you talked to them about that, yeah.
Well, thank you for doing that. I mean, imagine. I mean, that took a lot of effort and education.
Yes.
At that time, yes. Because we weren't used to being centralized in that respect.
Right. And technology has changed so much since that computer in the finance office. It was like a big box, and you used tapes. And
did you have to set up a program for that?
The program, we got a man came in. He did the program up for it. We used to call the computer Fred.
Friend?
Fred.
Fred. Why Fred?
Fantastically ridiculous electronical device.
Say that again.
Fantastically ridiculous electronical device. We were always talking to Fred. Come on, Fred.
Do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Well, you probably smile now when you see these little laptops or these
yes,
iPads.
I have one of those, yes.
So you still stay up on the computer?
I stay up on the computer. You kind of have to have, for the congregation stuff. Without the computer, you're not going to find out anything, really.
Well, while you were here in Adrian, were you able to take advantage of any of the Weber Center programs?
No, I haven't taken advantage of anything like that yet. It's just getting accustomed to being in my new surroundings.
But when you were here working in the finance...
Oh, yes. I took advantage of a lot of them. The biggest program, which is the same year I came to the finance office, was called the Weber Center program. It may have had another name.
Summer program.
I think June Secor and Ann O'Connor were kind of like the leaders with some of the Zavarians, the provincial, the Zavarians.
That's when we had men religious joining us for the summer.
That's right. Yes.
How was that experience for you?
It was a beautiful experience. It was good on friendships and everything, knowing that you could talk freely to a gentleman, to a male, without being ridiculed, I guess, or looked down upon. I mean, when we first went on a mission and had to talk to the parents, the father and mother of the child we were teaching, it was very hard because there were certain things that you just didn't feel free to say. And in forming friendships in this program, they were long-lasting, a lot of them. In fact, my final friend just died 2 years ago. He was a Christian brother, and we were very close.
What was his name?
He was Jim Brennan, an Irishman.
Oh.
He invited me to New York a couple months after the program closed that year, which was a big surprise, and I saw a lot of New York I had never thought I would ever see. And he remained a friend for all those years, was at my brother and sister-in-law's house for my one of my jubilees, the 50th I think it was, and we had a home mass, and he came in for the week to be there to celebrate with me and my family.
Well, he was a friend of yours,
yes,
correct?
The other person he was a friend of, and they taught together in Narragansett, New York, was Justin. Can't remember Justin's last name. He had cancer, but you didn't know it. He was very active, liked to play golf, and he brought his golf clubs along with him. And so we met him and would have evenings together, but the evening at Weber was always a dance. Dancing.
Tell me the first day you walked into the program. What did you see?
You had to put your name card on, and then you walked into the common room, or what do we call that room now? It's not
we called it the common room, yeah. I know. Mm-hmm.
And Gert was playing the piano, and people were laughing and singing and dancing, and all of a sudden someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Would you like to dance?" I said, "I don't know how to dance. I just know how to do the Irish jig."
Where did you learn the Irish jig?
Oh, in the prep school. Anytime there was a program in the novitiate for Mother Gerald's friends that came, or a priest, or mm-hmm. that came to be on the campus for some reason or other, Mother wanted a program, and it was always the novice and postulants and preps, and we had to always do the Irish jig.
So did you teach?
There was a Sister Marie Bride at that time
in
the community, and she was Irish, and she taught us the Irish jig. We were 3 feet instead of 2, but anyway, we got used to doing it. It seemed to be the primary thing we always did.
So did you dance with this brother?
This brother was a Dominican priest, and he was there for the program, and he said, "You don't have to know how to dance, just follow me." And it was so much fun that I was there dancing every night. They had disco. At times they did someone teach us how to do disco, and after that summer, I registered in Adrian. And the public school bulletin came out, and dance class, and the first class was a waltz, and so I went to it, but they had to have a partner, and I didn't sign up with a partner. I said, "I don't have a partner." They said, "Well, you have to sign up with a partner to come." So I asked Father Martin. So he was my partner.
From chaplain?
He was the chaplain, yeah, at that time. So we went out once a week to dance
Mary
class.
Jo, you're something else.
And after that, I kept talking about there was another class, disco class was being offered the next time. And Mary Rovat, I said, "Would you like to join me in this class? It's over at the public school, and it's going to be like in the evening mm-hmm. from 7 to 9. She says, "Yeah." Well, then Ann Guinan joined, and there must have been about 13 of us. We went for the disco class. It was so much fun.
Oh, what fun.
But it wasn't, you just had to keep doing it. It was just fun to dance.
And you still do that today, I'm sure.
I don't dance today, no. I don't even remember how to dance anymore, probably.
You joined up with Sister Rosaria also, didn't you, for the Pinafort? Didn't you work for the Pinafort?
Oh, well, you were kind of appointed for that in the summertime. You were part of that program, like I was the driver for that program, I think it was the Star of the Sea, the one I went to.
Oh, there was one in Chicago.
Mission. Yeah, there may have been another one, but I don't remember.
Well, there was one at Weber, I know.
Yeah, Weber and in Detroit.
Mm-hmm. That was mainly for the sisters in retirement or preparing for retirement?
Sisters in retirement or maybe preparing. They were elderly, and the summer being there was just a relaxation for them, but they had doctor appointments and they needed to go shopping or whatever just to get out, and I was the driver for wherever they had to go. It was neat.
You met a lot of the
So in between that and not having to go anyplace, I worked on the math program again. So I guess that's probably where I started in the summertime, different times, just enhancing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then once you left Chicago, you went to St. Linus, is that correct, in Dearborn Heights?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Came in and we lived in a parsonage in St. Linus Parish. That was in 1974. Sister Nadine Sheehan was looking for a place for some of us to live. Helen Linke was one of the sisters, Margie Hahn, who's no longer with us, Pat Benson, Diane Kosicki. We all lived in this parsonage. It had 3 bedrooms, I think, upstairs, 1 downstairs on first floor, or were there 2? And that was it, but there were 5 of us. So we made part of the basement into a bedroom, which was a study, I guess, for the pastor of the parish. But he seemed to like the country parish he was in charge of too. So most of the time he spent it in the country, and this house remained vacant. And the next door neighbors, an Italian family, said, when they heard Nadine's thing in their church paper, St. Linus, they called her and said, we have a house next door to us, but you'll have to check with the church board and see if they'll let you rent it. Well, after a meeting, I guess they said, okay, so that's where we lived. For
that
2
was
years.
the Palazzolas?
That was the Palazzola family that lived next door
There
to
was
us, yeah.
a young woman that entered our congregation by that name,
yeah.
but I
They had
wasn't
a daughter
that.
and a son, but it wasn't any
wasn't
of those.
them.
And a couple times during the year, I would check on the Palazzola family names to see if I recognized them, but I didn't.
So how long did you stay in the parsonage?
We were there 2 years because we got flooded out a couple times, and people got tired of being flooded out. And that's when we went to Epiphany to live, where Nancy Ann Turner was living, and Mary James Hickey.
And Joe Gosher?
Joe Gosher had just moved out. So Diane and Pat and myself moved in.
That was a sturdy convent, wasn't it?
It was a sturdy convent. One day in my bedroom, however, the window got broken with a rock. They threw a rock through it, the people in the neighborhood. Don't know if they knew we were nuns
Did
or
that
not.
frighten you?
Oh, it did. It did. But that was interesting. And that was where I was living when I got the call from Adrian about the finance office.
About the finance office, yes. Well, it's wonderful having you here at Maria. You've been here a short time now.
Yes. Almost a year, 3 months away.
So that's what, 9 months, yes. And you feel settled and happy.
Oh, yes. Doing my little jobs. I'm okay.
Any recommendations for those who are thinking of coming to Adrian?
Definitely come. Come before it's too late, before you don't recognize anybody or they don't recognize you. Right now you can have lots of fun with the sisters in your crowd or those you live with, and you can pick up little things to do, and there's always something going on here. It's just a beautiful place to be.
Thanks so much, Mary Jo.
Thanks, Jody.
It was delightful talking with you.